Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking something absolutely wild. We're going to decode exactly how classical Greek mythology maps directly onto a modern pop classical phenomenon. Specifically, we're looking at electronic classical crossover artist Lindsey Stirling. We're going to see how her entire artistic identity forms a literal modern incarnation of one of the most powerful ancient archetypes.
Now you might be wondering, how exactly does a modern pop star embody an ancient goddess? It's a fascinating question, right? This is the central mystery we're diving into today. We're going to bridge the gap between classical antiquity and contemporary crossover music and see how an artist operating in the digital age essentially resurrects a mythic deity. Okay, let's dive into this by defining exactly who we're talking about here. Artemis, or Diana if you're looking at the Roman pantheon, was this incredibly distinct sovereign figure on Mount Olympus. She was the goddess of the hunt, the moon, archery, and maidenhood. But honestly, more than anything else, she was defined by her unyielding autonomy. She completely rejected the political maneuverings, court obligations, and patriarchal structures of Mount Olympus. Actually, scratch that. She didn't just reject them. She demanded the absolute freedom to roam untouched forests, armed only with her silver bow. She's basically the original independent artist.
So, here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with the modern Artemis incarnate. Then look at the bow as silver arrow. After that, we'll cover composing the myth, visualizing the Huntress, and we'll wrap it all up with ruling the digital wilderness.
All right, part 1, the modern Artemis incarnate.
So rather than submitting to seated symphony orchestras or, massive major record labels, Lindsey Stirling forged her own sonic domain. And it's based on 4 distinct pillars of the Artemis myth. First up is Agrotera, the kinetic huntress of the untamed fields, which Stirling expresses through her highly athletic performances. Then there's Cynthia, the Lunar Radiance, which you can literally hear in her icy electronic timbres and those super high-frequency acoustic runs. Third is Kourotrophos, the watchful Sentinel, realized through these incredibly vigilant protective melodies. And finally, Eleutheria, Unbound Autonomy. This is demonstrated by her total rejection of the traditional record industry. She takes this primal spirit and translates it flawlessly into a digital medium.
Moving right along to part 2, the bow as silver arrow.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it connects directly to the actual mechanics of the music. In classical myth, Artemis's primary interface with the world is her silver bow, forged in moonlight. Well, in Stirling's hands, the taut horsehair of the violin bow acts as both an acoustic and physical weapon. Just like an archer drawing back and releasing a bowstring to fire swift projectiles, she uses these hyper-articulated right-wrist techniques to discharge razor-sharp melodic notes. It's a perfect physical metaphor.
And to cut through all those heavy EDM and dubstep arrangements, she employs specialized off-the-string classical bowings that literally mimic archery. Just think about this rhythm in your head. Spiccato and sautille give us short, bouncing, biting attacks. Then there's ricochet, where she throws the bow onto the string for a rapid, bouncing cascade. It mimics a volley of arrows, which is just insane. Martelé delivers heavy, hammered strokes with this explosive snap, and pizzicato, the direct plucking of the strings, vividly evokes the snapping release of a physical bowstring. She essentially transforms a delicate orchestral instrument into a kinetic weapon.
Okay, part 3, composing the myth.
So, shifting from physical technique to how she actually writes her music, her discography acts as a literal architecture for the Artemis mythos. Specific tracks align perfectly with the goddess's traits. Her title track, Artemis, shifts rapidly to construct this dark forest pursuit, channeling Agrotera, the Huntress. Then you look at a massive hit like Crystallize, which aligns with Cynthia, the lunar sovereign. She contrasts these pristine, high-register violin runs with heavy, subterranean dubstep bass drops, completely emulating the sound of glacial ice shattering underfoot. It is pure, cold, nocturnal brilliance.
But, the archetype isn't just about the hunt. It's also about protection. The track Guardian reflects Artemis's role as Kourotrophos, the vigilant sentinel protecting vulnerable souls. This piece was actually written in memory of Stirling's father and her keyboardist, her best friend Gabby Delure. Both passed away while she was making this album. The melody acts as a watchful, acoustic barrier. It transforms this incredibly deep, personal grief into an untamed, protective anthem over the vulnerable.
Which brings us to part 4, visualizing the Huntress.
We could hear the myth in the music, sure, but she also ensures we see it. Stirling didn't just make an album here, she built an entire transmedia world, even including a comic book series. She portrays this stylized lunar heroine in silver armor, navigating a darkened, dystopian world that's been deprived of the moon. And this brilliantly illustrates her acting as a torchbringer fighting to restore light. Her live shows are heavily saturated with glowing lunar weaponry, custom-built crossbow violins, and dancers executing perfectly synchronized martial choreography.
Now, classical concert violinists typically perform from a super rigid stationary posture, right? It's all about preserving intonation. Well, Stirling entirely shatters that convention. She vaults, spins, backbends, and leaps all over the stage while somehow maintaining flawless pit center. This aggressive, evasive choreography, featuring actual archer stances and low crouching slides, perfectly mirrors the agile Agrotera bounding across mountain peaks tracking her prey.
Furthermore, if you look at her music videos, she completely rejects luxurious artificial indoor environments. Instead, she places herself right out in the untamed wilderness. Crystallize was filmed inside freezing glacial ice caverns out in Colorado. Shadows places her deep in pine forests. Till the Light Goes Out relies purely on natural light, dust, and fire in a stark desert wasteland. Untouched nature becomes the ultimate sanctuary for her unbound spirit.
Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds into our final point, ruling the digital wilderness.
So how does all this mythological autonomy translate to a real-world career trajectory? Well, the myth of Artemis begins with her refusing to belong to the political inner circle of Mount Olympus. Stirling's career mirrors this exactly. Back in 2010, she was rejected by the Olympian elite of the music industry. TV judges told her a dancing electronic violinist was totally unmarketable, and legacy labels just dismissed her entirely. But rather than conform, what did she do? She retreated to the digital wilderness. Operating independently under her own Lindsey Stomp label, she used YouTube to bypass the gatekeepers completely.
And the result of that autonomy? Over 14 million subscribers, billions of video views, multiple Billboard awards, and sold-out worldwide arena tours. She kept absolute, 100% creative control over her music and visual intellectual property. She proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you do not need the Olympian Corp to build an empire.
So, the crucial point is this. The creator economy platform functions as the modern equivalent of the untamed wilderness. By bypassing the corporate structures, Stirling built a sanctuary based entirely on artistic self-reliance. It is the absolute ultimate expression of Eleutheria, Unbound autonomy.
Lindsey Stirling's career is just a profound reemergence of the Artemis archetype. Her bow acts as the modern silver arrow, breaking down conventional genre boundaries. She stands as a true archetype of autonomy, demonstrating that artistic power can absolutely flourish far beyond the control of corporate gatekeepers.
This leaves us with a really powerful takeaway. Stirling decoded the path to true creative freedom by embracing the wilderness rather than fearing it. So I leave you with this to consider. In a world still guarded by Olympian elites, where is your digital wilderness? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this sparks some incredible ideas for your own independent pursuits.